Welcome to History 361, the History of Germany. This is the lecture for Week 1, Part 1. Please note that I always give attribution for my images and my PowerPoints. Many of those are copyright-free, google.com images or clip art, and if they're from books, I will tell you where the source is from. A disclaimer, online classes, because of their very nature, are demanding. They require a great deal of self-discipline and self-motivation. So I'm here to work with you, and if you have the motivation and the discipline, the self-discipline, I'm here to help you succeed in this course. However, this is an accelerated 8-week course. So we literally are going to be covering in 8 weeks what we would normally cover in a 16-week course. So please know that things are going to go very quickly. There's a lot of reading and a lot of writing required in that 8 weeks. Now, because we're not meeting in a face-to-face format, that means it's especially important to leave the lines of communication open between us in other ways. I am here to help you. I'm here to help you succeed. I am here to help you with your writing, and I absolutely love teaching. I've won a number of teaching awards, including the major kind of Greater Cincinnati Consortium of Colleges and University teaching awards some years ago. I love teaching in all formats, face-to-face, hybrid, online. So whatever your questions or concerns may be, please feel free to email me or to call my cell phone. And they're both listed here, but they're listed on the syllabus as well. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised that I respond to your emails and cell phones fairly quickly. I do not, however, use text messaging for teaching purposes for a number of reasons. Now, it's very important after you listen to this lecture to go ahead and download the syllabus from the class website and to read it thoroughly. I'm not going to be covering everything in the syllabus in this lecture today. I will be instead concentrating on focusing on those things that are most important and that are of most concern to you. And probably most concern to you is, what things am I responsible for, assignments am I responsible for, and how can I do well in those assignments. So the breakdown, this is literally a 100% reading and writing, research and writing intensive class. There are no objective quizzes or tests of any kind. That is, no multiple choice matching, true false kinds of question. Everything is writing intensive. So as you can see, we're going to have an icebreaker worth 28 points. An icebreaker you're probably familiar with is where you introduce yourself to your fellow classmates in a discussion format, and it's whatever that you're comfortable with sharing. And you can see the directions or instructions for that in the syllabus itself. Then also there are 6 critiques, each worth 132 points each. We're going to spend almost the entire rest of this lecture talking about what is required in those critiques and how to do well in those critiques. And so if you notice, all the points add up to 820, but in actuality, you only need 800 to get like a perfect score of 100 in this class. So 20 points are what I call my self-service extra credit. They're literally built-in extra credit. And a good portion of those points are contained really in the icebreaker. So I think it's very important that you do the icebreaker because you never know when you might need those extra points. I think another thing to consider here, and we don't like pop-ups like that. Sorry about that little interruption. Another thing to consider here is that the system itself is not really, the grading point system in Blackboard is not really capable of knowing that I have self-service extra credit. So it can't quite figure out that you've got 20 extra points if only 800 points is a 100%. So if at any particular time you're confused about, gee, the Blackboard system seems to say that I have an A- and I think I have an A. It's probably a Blackboard problem, but it could have been maybe I put down some grade wrong for you. So if there's ever a problem like that, just get a hold of me and we'll find out where the problem lies and fix it if necessary, right? If it's a mistake. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, and most of what we're going to do in this lecture, is discuss what the critiques are, because that's all but 28 points. So let's first describe what they are not. A critique in this class is not the same as an outline. So all of you will be reading some assigned readings, and I'm certain that all of you read very well, and I do too. So I don't want you to simply repeat or summarize what the readings state. So that this isn't an outline, it isn't a summary of what the readings state. It's not an alphabet soup of facts and figures. Instead, you're supposed to take something that you've read in those readings that appeals to you, that you want to learn more about, and to go off and research that. We're going to describe that a little bit more, but again, this is not a Cliff's kind of, notes, outline, summary of what's in the readings. And it's not an uninformed opinion either. So that is, you're going to have to go out and find other sources, unassigned readings, and that means that we're looking for professional research, and professional research assumes that you're not giving an opinion, that you're not saying I, my, me. In fact, we're going to try to avoid those three words in our critiques. And they're not written hastily. They're not written in an hour or less after you finish your reading. They require much longer time. We're going to explain that in a minute. So what are they? They are thoughtful, analytical responses to the readings. The critiques will engage and build your critical thinking skills. And so you'll be reading through it, and you'll have hopefully some moments where you say, okay, I'm putting the pieces of this reading together. I'm seeing the major point or points or themes or thesis, whatever you want to call it, of the author. And within that framework, I found a topic that I want to learn much more about. And you'll go and look for an outside source, an unassigned source, and you'll do at least one in-text note, and we'll discuss that further. It requires time to do this, to sift through, think about the readings, to conduct additional research, and we're going to put together then professional papers or critiques. And in professional papers and critiques, again, I'm not interested in whether you found the book interesting or boring. And when you have time, go see this comical Bugs Bunny clip where Bugs Bunny is dressed up in, drag, and he's doing the monster's nails, the big pink monster in the Bugs Bunny films and so on. And he keeps saying that, you monsters must live very interesting lives and meet interesting people. And it's clearly repetitive use of interesting so much. And it's a funny way of telling you that we're looking for serious professional papers. So please don't ever use the word interesting in your paper if you can avoid it. And our critique essays will try to navigate the two-way street of history. I'm going to explain that a little bit more in the second lecture for this class. We'll use and sharpen our critical thinking skills. Critical thinking means that we utilize our human reasoning skills to arrive at well-researched analytical conclusions. So critiques in terms of format should have three components in a history class like this. They should have an introduction, and an introduction is usually one complete paragraph that provides an overview of what your essay, what your critique is going to cover. Then there will be a body of your critique, which will be a number of paragraphs containing detailed information that support your thesis, your main idea, with plenty of specific examples. Each paragraph should have a clear and concise topic sentence. And then a conclusion usually is a full paragraph that restates or reviews your essays. Now, acceptable sources for assignments in this class for research include scholarly books, scholarly journals, specialized encyclopedias, such as World History Encyclopedia, which is a specialized encyclopedia, but not general encyclopedias like Britannica and Wikipedia, government documents and government websites, but not .com, .edu, .net websites, respectable newspapers, magazines, television, and radio networks and their websites like New York Times, Time, Newsweek, The Economist, U.S. News and World Report, PBS, CBS, NBC, ABC, BBC, etc. For detailed explanation on how to find sources, we're going to tell you all about that later on in this lecture. I also list at the end of the syllabus some sources that you can use for your critiques. There's a very good one, and these first ones are available in English, called Facts About Germany. There's German History, which is the journal of the German History Society, and it's available via Academic Search Complete, one of the databases on the NKU Steele Library Resources. And then there's Deutsche Welle, which has news stories, videos, and more available at dw.com. And if you read German, which I know some of you do because you're German majors, but again, you don't have to read German or understand German to take this class. We do have the print version of the magazine Der Spiegel in the NKU Steele Library. We do also have the print version of the newspaper Die Zeit, and you can get the Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung available at the following website. Now, it's always important to kind of think like the professor thinks, and I don't like to have people guess what I'm thinking. I like to let students know what I'm thinking. So, what was my purpose in designing these critiques in the first place? What did I hope to accomplish? I hope to accomplish 3 objectives. One was to demonstrate that you, the student, have read and understood the assigned readings. Right? I assign readings, you need to read them, you need to understand them, and you need to somehow prove in the critiques that you have read them without exhaustively summarizing them. So you can say, you know, in our reading by Stephen Osmond, A Mighty Fortress, in our textbook, blah, 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 blah. And you can point out a few things that struck you when you read and leave it at that. Again, you don't have to tell me everything you read in the 100 or 200 pages that you've read. Instead, you're going to concentrate on something that you read, some topic that you found to be really interesting, that you want to learn more about. You choose that as your topic, as your thesis, and you go out and find some research. Find some unassigned readings. These are not things that I assign, but that are unassigned. They're outside scholarly resources. And then the third thing is, you're demonstrating to me that you, the student, know how to research, how to summarize your research, and how to write. And these are all very important skills, no matter what your major might be. And we have a lot of majors in here who are not history majors. But all of these research and writing skills are good in whatever major you use. We're going to use in our papers here in-text notes. In-text notes are being used more and more in modern American publishing. And so instead of doing a footnote, which would appear at the foot of the page, or an endnote, which would appear at the end of your paper, these are preferable. And how you do them is the following. You take the last name of the author, the year of publication of whatever you looked at, put it in a comma, and the page number that you're quoting from, and then a period at the end of the sentence. It's that simple. It's called an in-text note. Some people call it an in-text footnote, which would be sort of actually very ironic since it's not a footnote, but it's an in-text note. Now, the place that you start when you write your paper is you print out your rubric, which I give you here and which I also give you in the syllabus. And you look at the rubric and say, what does he want me to do? How can I get a good grade? Now notice that the rubric is divided into 11 different categories. So each of those is worth up to 12 points. And that we have a green column. This is sort of like a traffic light. Green is good. It's yes, you did it. So when I go through your paper, yep, boom, yep, check mark, 12, 12, 12, 12, 12. Or you didn't do it at all, which is a red, or you partly did it, which is a 6, okay? And so those are kind of the grade point spread. So what do we want? We want at least 900 words, not counting the bibliography. And it needs to be submitted in a Word or Word-compatible file and correctly uploaded to the class Blackboard site. Typically, I receive over 1,000 emails a week, and I receive more than 800 student assignments per semester. So literally thousands of student assignments per year. So the important thing to know is that if you upload it to the class Blackboard site, you are going to be absolutely 100% safe, because that goes into a queue for grading and it can't really be lost. I've never seen it lost. That's why I don't want you to send it to my emails, because it'll get lost. I get over 1,000 emails just on my NKU email a week. So if you have problems uploading it, you can get a hold of IT by calling, the 6911 number. It's in the syllabus, all the instructions. Or you can get a hold of me, and I'll suggest maybe it's something I need to do on my end. So introduction, we talked about that. Paragraphs need to have topic sentences, and you need to have good transitions between your paragraphs. You need evidence that supports your thesis in a logical and organized manner. You need to investigate other sources to find and explain what you learn from at least one scholarly unassigned outside source. Note, not Wikipedia, Encarta, Britannica, etc., and not edu.com websites. You need to use in-text notes, and you need to cite them properly. You need to have a conclusion, and you need to have a bibliography cited properly, proper grammar and syntax, correct spelling, professional vocabulary, not repetitive, know how to use synonyms to vary your word choice. That is how to use the thesaurus feature, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. And also, don't use vulgar language or I, my, or me. Now you've got this in front of you. You look at it when you're writing your critique, and you follow these 11 categories, and you should do very well. Okay. Now, I say, don't be a bore. Lawrence Peters said, a bore is a person who lights up the room simply by leaving it. Okay. At this stage in your undergraduate career, you need to enlarge and vary your vocabulary. Repetitive word usage in the same sentence or a neighboring sentence makes for a boring writer. Use the thesaurus feature of Microsoft Word to vary your writing. So I'm going to choose something that lots of students kind of make a mistake doing in their writing. They'll say, the author says, he says, she says, and they'll say that, multiple times throughout their paper. Oh boy, sometimes I can count them, and probably it's there 30 or 40 times. And that gets very repetitive. It leads the reader to think that you don't have a large vocabulary. And so what you do is you just take something that you've been, going ahead and saying over and over again, and you bold it. In fact, you don't even have to bold he. You should just bold says. And that, you right-click it after you've bolded it, and this will come up, synonyms. You hit that, and then you can hit thesaurus. It's that easy. You don't have to leave Word. You just bold the word like says, comments, tells, whatever. You go down to synonyms, and then you go over to thesaurus. And boom, you get all these possibilities. He speaks, he utters, he articulates, he declares, he pronounces, he states, shouts, verbalizes, answers, replies, exclaims, reveals. You could go down and find more and more. And then you could take each one of these, like you say, I like he states. You could hit states, and then you'll get a whole bunch of other words. And then you can even replace them in your writing. So again, try to vary your writing. Try to make it interesting. If you're headed for, graduation and getting a job, and you're going to write memos or reports or any number of things, or you're going to graduate school, it's really going to be very helpful for you to be able to use the thesaurus feature. And the other thing that I want to point out was, I think, best said by Michael Crichton. He's the one that wrote Jurassic Park and a bunch of other books, that writing takes time. You don't sit down and write a 900-word critique for this class in one sitting and proof it only once or twice. No one writes well if they just write extemporaneously and never go back and reread what they have and then write some more and then go back and reread it, etc. You write a critique over a couple of sittings. You write a paragraph and then you proof it. You write a second paragraph and then you proof both the first and the second paragraphs. You write a third paragraph and then you proof the first, second, and third paragraphs as you read them over together. And so the process continues. This enables you to write logically and convincingly using good transitions between paragraphs. You will be surprised if you use this process. I promise you, your writing will become much better and much more professional. And you also will get a great sense of satisfaction, like, those paragraphs are really tying together well. They're making sense. Oh, I'm going to change that word. Oh, I'm going to look that word up in the thesaurus. Oh, I can make this long sentence into 2 sentences. And the flow of your writing will be better. The flow of your ideas will be better, because 2 things go together here. When writing flows well, your ideas will usually flow well. And if your ideas flow well, your writing will usually flow well. Now, at the end of each bibliography, you need, or each critique, you need to have a bibliography. Let's go here a second to Citation Machine. Let's see if it comes up. I don't see it coming up, so we're going to... but when you get time, go to citationmachine.net to see how you can format in Chicago style or Turabian style what I'm talking about. Due dates, usually the essays are due by 11:59 on Sunday, 1 minute before midnight. They must be submitted via the links provided. And so where do I go for an additional source? What's trustworthy? Well, we've already said we want you to avoid things like internet websites, except.gov, or websites that I've recommended already. But we want you to avoid things like Wikipedia. Instead, we want you to rely upon standard sources, including the many digital resources of NKU Steely Library. Literally thousands of possibilities for you, and I'm going to show you how to do that now. The NK Steely Library website changes all the time, so this might not look like this exactly, but there's always a login feature where you put in your NKU username and password. And then there's usually somewhere up in the upper right-hand corner some kind of drop-down list when you go to wnku.edu, and usually it'll say Library Steely. And there's usually something like Research Help, and they have a bunch of research guides that can be helpful. They have things for books and media, for instance, for reference items, articles, websites. They even have ebooks, that is, electronic books. And you might say, well, I don't want to read an entire book. And you don't have to read an entire book. You might find a chapter in a book, which would be similar in size, usually, to an article in a journal. You might want to skim through the book to find some ideas. So a lot of my students will go and find ebooks. Books and media through Humanities eBooks, so there's another possibility there for more ebooks. And there are literally a half dozen ways to find articles on this website. You could just go to the German history and find it through Journals A to Z. You could type a database in, like go to JSTOR under J. JSTOR literally stands for, and I know some of you probably used it, it stands for what is called journal storage, and it's a database that storehouses digital copies of journals. So let's try a JSTOR search for the Habsburg Dynasty, which we're going to be talking about in this class an awful lot. It's not important that things be capitalized when you do your search. Again, the search might look different than this. There are different ways to do advanced searches. In most advanced searches, you can choose a variety of options. For instance, I clicked here only content that I can access because I maybe don't have time to run to the library and get an actual paper version of it. I might want scholarly articles that are more new, so I might, want to put in these kind of year frames or up to 2016 or 17 or whatever. I could click scholarly articles, history search. Well, in this case, I found over 2,200 items. But I really don't want book reviews, so I could have actually, left those out and just done articles. And when I click on an item, I get a short abstract on the right-hand side. And if you click on the PDF, the article will actually download as long as you've already logged in to the site with your username and your password. So all of these sites are fairly similar. You can use basic searches, you can use advanced searches. If you need any help with them, I'd be more than happy to help you. Now, once you download the article from JSTOR and from most of these other sites, you'll actually get a first page that will have the bibliographic citation, all the information that you'll need. It may not have it in the order that you need for our bibliographies, but it'll have all of the information that you need. There's a treasure trove of digital full-scale articles. Those are accessible through databases like JSTOR, which we just told you about, Academic Search Premier, where you'll find the German history, ProQuest, Project Muse, to name but a few. The best way with learning these is experimenting with them yourself and finding articles for your critique essays. So we could have gone to JSTOR by going under the J databases, and there it is. Boom, boom. Another thing is if you're looking for a book, and this may not apply to this class since we only have an 8-week class format, but it might apply to the fact that, hey, you don't want to go to all the library sites in this area, to Cincinnati Public Library, to Kent County Library, to see if someone nearby has a book, or if you're not in the Cincinnati area and you're in Chicago or Louisville or someplace else. One of the ways to see where a book is held in your area, indeed throughout the world, is what is called WorldCat, which stands for World Catalog. And it's amazing. It'll help you find a book anywhere really in the world. And if you do find that book, and if you are taking like a 16-week class, and that's a research class, and it's not available in our area, or your area, then NKU Source Finder will help to get the book sent to you, or even maybe a PDF of the article if you're looking for an article. And so I tried an example of trying to find who has worldwide My Encyclopedia of Northern Kentucky, and I found, over 100 places that have it worldwide. And notice they're listed differently. These are all the same book. It just how some libraries catalog the book was different than others. If you click Source Finder, then it'll take you to an electronic form, and you can actually get it through Interlibrary Loan, which is NKU Source Finder. Another thing we need to talk about is plagiarism. The Blackboard site checks every essay for plagiarism. Plagiarism includes quoting or using wording from a book, journal, article, internet, or other source verbatim, that is word for word, without putting the quote quotation marks and citing it in a note. Paraphrasing another person's unique ideas or research without giving them credit in a footnote. Using another person's tables, graphs, photographs, artwork, illustrations without giving them credit in a source reference. Using all or part of another student's paper or presentation, even if that student approves. Using a paper or presentation from a free essay or presentation website or service, and buying a paper or presentation from an essay or presentation service. So, word-for-word quotes must be put in quotation marks and footnoted. And, again, we're not going to footnote. These are some older examples that I have and I use. You could use a content note here. Same thing. Notice that I am quoting word from this book. Therefore, I need to use and put it in quotation marks. The ellipsis means there was more there, but I've chosen not to give it, so I give ... If you would like to use a very long quote, then it's necessary that you go ahead and use a block quotation. And a block quotation basically says, I'm quoting a lot of stuff from a source, verbatim, word for word, and hence I need, instead of doing it the prior way that you saw here, I need to do it this way. I need to go on and do my little writing, blah, 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 blah. Oh, now here's a block quotation, which tells the world that I am quoting something that is very long. It's several lines long. I have to go ahead and indent it on both sides, and I have to single space it, and you don't put quotation marks around it in a block quote, but it looks like this. Now, let's say I'm paraphrasing not generally known facts or statistics. Those also would require a citation, but not necessarily quotation marks. And the reason why I say this is, there's that great, and I love the show, Big Bang Theory, where Sheldon has this wonderful memory, right? He has a photographic memory. And so he can remember anything literally he's read. Well, actually some scientists and psychologists question whether that really exists, or whether people just have very good memories. But anyhow, let me assure you that in 30 years of my life, I've met many intelligent people, and I've never met a Sheldon before in my life. So I too question it. So we're not walking down the street, you and I, knowing that Asia's population increased in the period 1750 to 1900, as evidenced by a population explosion in China from 143 million in 1741 to more than 400 million in the 1840s. We don't just walk down the street and know those things. So if we say those kinds of things in our paper, we have to give the source for it. And that makes total sense because people are going to ask your readers, me, where did you get that information? Is it reliable information? Where did it come from? So even though this isn't word for word and hence doesn't require quotation marks, it is paraphrasing generally known facts or statistics. So it requires a note, a content note. Now, lest you become obsessive compulsive about this, you do not have to footnote when you're paraphrasing generally known or widely disseminated information. These things here, Christopher Columbus sailed to America in 1492. Mother Teresa was a great humanitarian. U.S. entered World War II after the Japanese bombing. These are things that you can find in millions of books and articles you've learned in school, and millions of people know without having to necessarily look up the information. So those don't need to be quoted, footnoted, cited, unless you're doing it verbatim. Same thing applies if you use a photograph, an illustration, a graph, whatever. You need to give the source, as you'll note throughout my own PowerPoints. Now, footnotes versus endnotes. Footnotes appear at the bottom of a foot of the page. Endnotes appear at the end. For this class, we'll be using in-text notes, and I've already given you an example. But in addition to the notes, we want to see a bibliography. A bibliography is a list of your sources given at the end of your paper. It includes the author's first and last names, the title of the book or title of the author, the place of publication, the publisher, the name of the journal, the date of publication, etc. For this class, we want you to use what we use in history, the Chicago, which is also sometimes called in an abbreviated kind of format, the Turabian style. We do not have this textbook, A Pocket Guide to Writing in History, for many examples. Please, that was a change. I did not require that. I wanted to save you money. But a free program is available to assist you with correctly formatting, and it is available at citationmachine.com, and that link worked, so thank you. Citation Machine is really easy to use. You can choose your style. So I said Chicago style. Let's choose Chicago style. Now, you might even look up the book. So let's go ahead and just put in Tenkate, my name, and see what comes up. Well, quite a number of books came up. And so let's take this one, the Encyclopedia of Northern Kentucky, and let's go ahead and select it. And it's actually filled in most of the stuff for us. It has the two authors, Paul Tenkate and James Claypool, the Encyclopedia of Northern Kentucky, University Press, Lexington, Kentucky. And so we're going to ask it to just go ahead and create that citation for us. And there it did. It created the citation for us. So pretty amazing. And there you could just go ahead and copy and paste the citation and put it right on in to your paper. And it is literally that easy. Okay. All right. Now we want to get back to our task at hand. So a bibliography would look like this, and you generally indent the second and subsequent lines, and you put it in order alphabetically of last name. So Doe comes before McKay. If you don't have, say, an author on it, then you go to the next thing, which is, say, the title of the article or whatever. If you have two authors with the same name, then you go to the first name to alphabetize. So Jane would come before John, so on and so forth. Here I absolutely show you, so in case you're not comfortable with the citation machine or you feel the citation machine isn't doing it justice, I show you how to do the bibliographic citation in Chicago style for a book with multiple authors, a dissertation, an article in a scholarly journal. And please note that when you use journal articles, you not only need the author's last name and first name, you need the title of the article, the name of the journal it came from, the volume number, the issue number, the month or season, a year, and the page numbers that that article appears in. Same with popular magazine or newspaper article, etc. I'm giving you for your .gov and other websites how that you go ahead and cite bibliographic citations for a website. A book review in case you use that. A manuscript, in case you use first primary materials. Interviews that you do, etc. Now, when in doubt, you can use the Chicago Manual of Style, or you can just get a hold of me and ask me. I'm more than happy to show you how to do proper citations. This lecture is continued as week 1, part 2, so please join us there. Thank you, and have a good day.